It was a chilly Monday morning at Green Valley High, and the gymnasium was buzzing with the typical pre-class energy. The students were filing in, laughing, and joking as they prepared for their physical education class. Miss Carter, the new PE instructor, was known for being tough but fair. She expected discipline, respect, and effort from her students, no exceptions. Her gym was a place where rules were followed strictly, and everyone knew that when you entered her domain, you followed the structure she set. However, there was one student who liked to test the boundaries. Caitlin "Cat" Richards was a junior with a rebellious streak. She had a quick wit, a sharp tongue, and a tendency to push limits, especially when she thought no one was looking. She often showed up late to class, ignored the instructions, and once in a while, she'd mock Miss Carter's strict rules just to see what would happen. That day, as the class began to gather on the court, Miss Carter stood at the front, clipboard in hand. She blew her whistle to gather the students' attention. "All right, everyone circle up. We're starting with warm-ups today, and I expect everyone to be on their best behavior," Miss Carter announced. The students quickly fell into line, except for Kat, who was still chatting with a group of friends near the bleachers. Miss Carter's gaze narrowed as she watched Kat continue to talk, laughing, and completely ignoring the instructions. "Kat," Miss Carter called firmly. Kat glanced over her shoulder, rolling her eyes. Yeah, I'm coming. Don't have a meltdown, Miss Carter," she said sarcastically, before finally walking over to the group. Miss Carter didn't respond to the snide remark, but simply pointed to the line with a stern expression. "You're late, and you're disrupting the class. Get in line, and we'll discuss it later." Kat scoffed but walked toward the line, her arms crossed over her chest as she stood next to the others. She was clearly annoyed, but didn't say anything more, figuring she could get away with it. Miss Carter called for everyone to start jogging around the court. As the students began their warm-up, Miss Carter watched closely, making sure no one was slacking off or talking. But she noticed Kat was once again distracted, taking her time with each lap, slowing down to chat with others, and clearly not taking the exercise seriously. "Kat," Miss Carter called out again, her voice cutting through the gym. Kat rolled her eyes and jogged toward her teacher. "What now, coach?" "I'm just catching my breath," she replied. "You're not catching your breath, you're wasting time. I told you to follow instructions and get moving. Now you're holding up the entire class." Kat shot her a defiant look. "Relax, Miss Carter. It's just a warm-up. I'm not hurting anyone." Miss Carter's eyes darkened, and she stood tall, walking over to where Kat was standing. "This is your final warning, Kat. You will not disrespect me or the class by slacking off. Do you understand?" Kat crossed her arms and smirked, her usual defiance showing. "Yeah, whatever." Miss Carter didn't hesitate. Her voice became even more serious. "Line up, Kat." The rest of the class went silent, sensing the tension rising. They had all seen Miss Carter get stern before, but no one had ever crossed her quite like this. Kat was about to learn that there were consequences for testing boundaries. Kat hesitated for a moment, but then reluctantly walked to the front of the gym, her head high but her stomach turning. Miss Carter walked over to the equipment closet and pulled out an old worn wooden paddle. It was something she rarely used, but when students pushed the limits like Kat had, it was an effective tool for discipline. Kat's heart skipped a beat as she saw the paddle in Miss Carter's hand. Her usual bravado faltered, but she tried to hide her anxiety. She had never been punished like this before, not even by her strictest teachers. "Do you understand why you're here, Kat?" Miss Carter asked, holding the paddle firmly in her hand. Kat nodded, her face flushing with embarrassment. "Yeah, I guess so," she muttered. Miss Carter didn't waste time with further words. "Then bend over and place your hands on your knees." Kat's face went red, but she obeyed, knowing that arguing would only make it worse. She bent over, her hands gripping her knees as she braced herself. The room was completely silent, every student watching, some feeling sympathy, others feeling a sense of relief that they weren't the ones in trouble. The next moment, Kat felt the sharp sting of the paddle across her backside. It wasn't the most painful thing she'd ever felt, but the shock and humiliation of it made her stand up straight immediately. "Another," Miss Carter said coldly. Kat nodded, her pride wounded but her temper cooled. "Yeah, I get it," she muttered. "Good. Now, join the rest of the class and start over with your warm-up. I'll be watching." Kat didn't argue. She walked back to the line, feeling a mixture of shame and relief. Her classmates were still watching her, some with sympathy, others with a bit of surprise, but no one said a word. They all knew the lesson that had just been taught. From that day on, Kat showed up early, followed the rules, and took Miss Carter's class seriously. She learned that respect wasn't something to be earned by pushing boundaries, but by following the structure and discipline set before her. And Miss Carter's gym became a place where every student, regardless of their attitude, learned that there were consequences for not respecting the rules.